Echo and HarperAudio present The Essential Muriel Rukeyser, Poems, by Muriel Rukeyser, selected and with an introduction by Natasha Trethewey, performed by Tanya Eby. Introduction. These roads will take you into your own country, by Natasha Trethewey. My earliest encounter with the poems of Muriel Rukeyser was in a seminar on contemporary American poetry in my first year of graduate school. It was 1990. She'd been dead for 10 years, and as I read aloud from the Book of the Dead, a long sequence from Rukeyser's 1938 collection, US 1, I felt the resonant power of her living voice, and the recognition that came to me was like the lightning that accompanies a thunderclap, illuminating everything for a resounding moment. As dark as I am, when I came out the morning after the tunnel at night with a white man, nobody could have told which man was white. The dust had covered us both, and the dust was white. The sequence recounts the history of the industrial tragedy of the Hawks Nest Tunnel construction project in Gauley Bridge, West Virginia. Rukeyser journeyed there to report on what had happened: industrial greed and malfeasance, the unsafe working conditions in the mines, the many deaths from silicosis, a disease that causes shortness of breath and is a result of prolonged inhalation of silica dust, that could have been prevented with proper protocols, providing masks for the workers and wet drilling. Nearly 2,000 people died. The greatest percentage of the dead were African American migrant workers from the South. And in the poem's haunting image of dust, I think of the phrase, "when the dust settles," Rukeyser exposes one of the realities of race in America: the disproportionate impact of unhealthy working conditions and environmental pollutants on Black Americans. The image underscores the awful truth of history. Even as the specter of death, the great leveler, shrouds them both in whiteness, one of them is more likely to die. "The poetic image is not a static thing," she wrote. "It lives in time, as does the poem." For Rukeyser, a poem's failure would be that a reader is not brought by the poem beyond it. How could I not be transported by the world, that place and time, of Rukeyser's Book of the Dead, to myriad places beyond it? She could have been writing about the Tuskegee experiment, lead in the water supply in Flint, Michigan, or the impact across the U.S. of the COVID-19 pandemic, this moment during which, after all these years, I've turned again to her work. This is the prescience, the timeliness and timelessness of Muriel Rukeyser's poetry. When I agreed to cull 75 poems from her vast body of work to edit The Essential Muriel Rukeyser, it was the summer of 2019. We were not yet in the midst of a pandemic. I easily recalled that first encounter with her work as a young woman, determined to become a poet, knowing only that something about the time and place I had entered the world, and my particular circumstances, was stirring in me some great need to speak in the language of poetry. And here was a woman poet, born a half-century before me, who powerfully embraced her call to bear witness, to tell what she had seen. A poet who, in the aftermath of seeing the beginning of a war, declared, when asked, "Where is there a place for poetry?" "Then I began to say what I believe." Her words were intoxicating, freeing, and her poems were maps into my as-yet unarticulated self. These are the roads to take when you think of your own country, and interested, bring down the maps again. These roads will take you into your own country. Here is your road, tying you to its meanings. All those years ago, the introduction to her work guided me in immeasurable ways to my own thinking about poetry. I had been prepared to approach editing this volume as an admirer who would try to pull together a representative sample, its far-reaching themes, forgetting that a compilation such as this one is as much about the moment in which the editor finds herself. By the time I finally sat down to read her collected works for this anthology,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?